So I got 6 new Blu-rays for Christmas, and I had to settle on one that I wanted to watch first, and I settled on Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. Why? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. This is the Kazdoy Closet. I'm Kazdoy. My closet's over there somewhere, full of all the stuff that I love. I don't have access to it right now. So we're shooting this al dente once again. And today I want to talk about Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey as cinematic comfort food. So let me start by showing you what I got for Christmas, briefly. I got a couple of Italian Westerns, A Bullet for the General. Haven't seen this one, heard it's one of the best spaghetti Westerns ever. Heard the same thing about The Grand Duel. Then I got Rio Grande directed with John Wayne, directed by John Ford. Looking forward to seeing this. Never saw it. Got to have some film noir in there. So Lady from Shanghai, which I saw once. Looking forward to watching it again. Orson Welles directing Rita Hayworth. And this one I've seen. It's been a long time. Death Wish, and nice little steel book. I think it was like a $10 special. And then, of course, I settled on 2001 A Space Odyssey. And I chose this even though I saw it twice last year. I saw it first at the Cinerama Dome, and that was the restoration that the director Christopher Nolan was distributing, and it is just amazing. Incredible presentation, and of course Cinerama Dome, which I believe this film is really made for that screen. Then I saw it about a month after that at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood, and I went with my son and his friend. They were both 21 at the time. And the Blu-ray, it looks amazing, and I don't have a big fancy setup with a surround sound or anything like that, just a 60-inch TV, and not even 4K or anything, but it looks stunning. And like the Christopher Nolan restored one, it has the beginning music where the screen shows blank for maybe 5 minutes, and then it has an intermission also. So it looks really good. A lot of extras on here about the making of 2001, the philosophical ideas behind it. There's an audio interview with Stanley Kubrick. And, you know, the first time I saw 2001 was way after it had been released in 1968. And I had heard a lot about it, mostly people saying, I have no idea what that movie was about. So I felt there was a challenge to go and see 2001, A Space Odyssey. So I did, and it was at some crummy little mini mall in a crummy little theater. Somehow it ended up there years after it was released. I think I was still in high school. And I don't think I've ever been so engrossed or focused or concentrated so much on a film before, just because I knew going in, or I had heard going in, that it's really difficult to comprehend. And even after the film, I read the novel to see if that would give me more insight. And it did. And, you know, we all have our interpretation of it, but I'll get into that later. So, you know, there's so much has been written about 2001 that I'm just going to give you a little bit of trivia about it. For example, it began as a novel. Kubrick approached the science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke in '64, and they wrote a novel first, then wrote the screenplay afterwards, and then 4 years later it was released in the theaters. The original title, Journey Beyond the Stars. The response from the audience and the critics was not very good. In fact, theater owners wanted to pull it after a couple of weeks because people weren't coming to see it. And then one theater owner said, wait a minute. Something strange is happening here. I have 6 teenagers showed up one night and sat in the front row and watched the film. And then the next night, 10 teenagers showed up, and then it just grew and grew after that. And it turns out that the youth in the 60s and 70s were getting a little bit high and going to see 2001, and so they even changed the tagline on the poster for the film to "The Ultimate Trip." and that's where it got its second life, so to speak. Another interesting thing is the music. Now, when Kubrick was making the film, and they were working on the film, he played the music, the classical music that ends up in the film while they were working. He did, however, hire a person named Alex North to do an original soundtrack. And he did the original soundtrack, and at the end, Kubrick said, why don't I just use the music we've been listening to? It seems to set the mood and work fine, and never use the original soundtrack. If you have a streaming service like Spotify, for example, you can hear the original 2001 soundtrack by Alex North on there. The budget was originally $6 million. It ended up being costing $10 million. And Kubrick had, among his many interests, had an interest in extraterrestrial life. And he did want to show the aliens in the film. And you can see this interest later on when he worked with Spielberg on a film. Steven Spielberg finally realized that his vision with the film AI after Kubrick passed away. But Kubrick eventually figured out, how am I going to show aliens? It's not going to work, right? How do you show that something that is just unknowable like that? So he passed on that idea. There's so many unique things about 2001: A Space Odyssey. I like the juxtaposition of this music from the 1800s while these futuristic space vehicles are spinning around and floating in space, and yet it seems to work. It's such a graceful thing, and you hear that music now. You hear also Sprach Zarathustra now, and you can't not think of the film, in my opinion. I think another interesting thing about the film, it has 4 distinct sections, yet they're separate but also related to each other and thematically seem to fit together. And then, of course, there are the technical breakthroughs like the camera work and the special effects and the use of sound. And then, of course, the various interpretations people have of the film. Now, Kubrick himself said, the point is not knowing exactly what it's supposed to mean, but it's more feeling the experience of it. And if there's ever a film that I think you experience, I think it's this film. Now, there's a book I'd like to recommend if you're into Kubrick, and it's called the Stanley Kubrick Archives. This is by that publishing company Taschen that makes a lot of art type books, and it's pretty thick. It's a smaller version. There's a bigger coffee table version of this, but I think that's pretty unwieldy to look at. You can get this for $20 easily. And since it's a Taschen published book, it's nice paper, a lot of photos, and color and black and white, and it covers all his films. And in the section on 2001, there is a analysis by a 15-year-old girl. Now, she wrote an analysis of 2001 for her class, and the teacher sent it to Kubrick, and Kubrick responded by saying, I read a lot of analyses of this film from scholars, from professors, from critics, but this 15-year-old girl's analysis is the best that I've read. And she breaks the film down into 4 different sections. The monolith and what she thinks it means, Hal, the computer, the room at the end of the film, and the themes, overall themes. So if you're interested in what she says, you're gonna have to check out the book. So at the beginning of this video, I said that, at least I think I said that this is cinematic comfort food for me. Why do I say that? There's a couple of reasons. One is watching it again, the feelings I get, and I think every time you see the film, it's a different experience, and it's something you always remember. But watching it again, why I say it's comfort food is, first of all, I get the feeling that it tells us that we're not alone in the universe. It also tells us that humans are always evolving, and are always searching for a meaning or for truth or for what else is out there. It shows us that humans are resilient, that we can overcome things. And by that I'm referring specifically to HAL, the computer, which is AI, artificial intelligence. And a lot of scientists are very nervous about AI and what potentially AI could do that could be harmful. But in 2001, they defeat AI when it goes bad. And then finally, I think the film shows that there is something beyond this existence, that there is an afterlife. And especially if you've had the experience of having a parent or a loved one who is getting very old, and you see them withering away. It reminds me of the scene at the end where Dave is in the room at the end, and he's a very old man, and he's reaching out, and he's in his bed, and he's reaching out toward the monolith. And that, anyways, that resonated with me. So, final thoughts about 2001: A Space Odyssey. You know, for me, it's just a work of art, and that stands out from saying other films are works of art. Influential, of course, and I think it's truly hopeful, and which is important considering that we're heading into the new year, 2021, pretty soon. And I also think it's truly visionary, and they use that word a lot in some of these ads for films, like from the visionary director Joe Blow or whoever. Not that many visionaries around. I think this is really this man's vision, and it's just an amazing piece of work. So those are my thoughts on 2001: A Space Odyssey. Cinematic comfort food for me. What do you think? Leave a comment. Give a thumbs up. Don't leave a thumbs down. Subscribe would be great. Otherwise, I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.